This is the story of a man who nearly lost everything. A man who nearly lost the rights to his beloved comics. A man who nearly lost his chance at a true and honest sweetheart. A man who nearly lost his mind battling the imposter that sought to swindle him. This is the story of Liquid Chris. What is up, gamers? It's your boy Richard back at it again with another quickie reading. Today we will be covering Panda Halo. Now, as we go on, ask yourself one question. Would the true Christian Weston Chandler behave like this? The quickie starts out with a little quote that says, "Sometimes I remember her, but I have moved on." Chris, sensitive as ever. And Casey says, "That would be horrible for you to ignore someone being assaulted like that." Yeah, I know. It was hard for me to ignore. From the Casey Call, 23. Sarah Cassandra Cash, née Mackenzie, nicknamed Panda Halo, and Sarah Hart, was Chris's true and honest sweetheart in 2008 to 2009, who lived in southern Australia before her fiery death. Over here is a nice illustration of Panda Halo and some nice information. We're skipping all that. History. During the Blanca saga, and if you don't know who Blanca is, I've already done a video on her. Panda Halo continued to send occasional messages to Chris. After Chris realized his mistake in believing in Blanca, he decided to declare his true and honest love for Panda on September 24th, 2008 through a Sonichu drawing. So he just realized that Blanca is a troll and doesn't think maybe this one is too. Chris, why are you like this? Chris, you get tricked every other day into something like this and you never learn from it.
Your fantasies can't ever be quenched, can they? You freaking freaks! When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
Panda toyed with Chris for a while, discovering how desperate he was for sex. Panda really pushed the limits of acceptable behavior, and their conversations showed just how gullible Chris can be when China is on the line. A good example is how she verbally abuses Chris while claiming that she's starting to fall in love with Robert Stemmons V, occasionally typing extremely obvious and specific insults to Chris, and easily passing it off as some kind of bizarre form of Tourette's syndrome.
This is the second time I've been fucked by Dairy Queen!
Or easily getting Chris to agree to bizarre sex acts, such as convincing him to have sex with a dog for her pleasure. What? Who did pleasure? For the record, he said he'd be willing to have sex with a collie. Like Lassie. Thank you, Chris. With the rise of zoophiles, that's just another thing that Chris has pioneered, apparently. He was the first Let's Player. He was the first Brony, and now, dear viewer, you know he was the first zoophile. She managed to obtain the first footage of Chris masturbating, and audio of Chris talking about his sexual opinions. He also sent Panda a PSP that was originally intended for Megan. That's right, Megan, how terribly she was treated. Megan's interesting. We'll get there when we get there, dear viewer. She purported to be a conservative Catholic, challenging Chris's views on premarital sex. He countered that his pastor had said it was permissible, apparently considering the fact that Panda subscribed to a vastly different theology, completely invalid, which, to be fair, Chris went to a very strange church that didn't exactly follow the letter of the law, and usually didn't follow the spirit of it either. Pro tip: this assault never actually happened. Also, if you're wondering why I'm replacing this word right here, it's because Mommy Susan doesn't like it. And I want Mommy Susan to be happy with me. In a disturbing act of revenge, Clyde Cash flew to Australia and assaulted Panda. Why would he do this? Why does Clyde Cash need revenge on Chris Chan? Well, it's pretty simple. He is the reason why Clyde Cash's brother, Ryan, killed himself. And when Chris was contacted about this, his response was, so much power.
And for Ryan Cash and his family, I feel for you, and I'm sorry, but best thing you could do for Ryan and yourselves, just to move on. Try to be happy in the future. That's what Ryan would want for y'all and the family. Gee, so much power.
Chris, or should I say Ian Brandon Anderson, is a megalomaniac. Never forget who the true Chris Chan is. She fell pregnant with Clyde's child, a fact which didn't appear to faze Chris in the slightest. Clyde immediately and generously offered to take care of Panda and their baby in his mansion, whereas Chris subtly, that subtly is in quotations for obvious reasons, pressured Panda into getting an abortion. Lars was less subtle in his approach to getting an abortion than Chris Chan was. That is saying something. As Chris was in the middle of lecturing Clyde about forgiveness, he was in an unusually forgiving mood and actively encouraged Panda to abandon her child to the man who had assaulted her, so Panda could live with Chris in his parents' house. While Clyde offered to house not only Panda and their child, but Chris as well, his stipulation that Chris would have to get a job nixed that idea. Exactly. How many days? How many days has it been, Chris, since you last looked for a job? There was also the issue that Clyde's act of assault had gotten Panda addicted to sex, which as a man who has learned everything he knows about sex from porn, Chris didn't at all question. She expressed some interest in regular threesomes with Chris and Clyde. In the end, Panda gave Chris an ultimatum. Talk to Nintendo to make Sanchu a reality so that Chris could support their future family together, and she would gladly abort Clyde's baby and live with him as his sex-addicted, baby-spewing wife. Failure to do so meant she would live with Clyde in his mansion and raise their child together. Chris, of course, wouldn't put in the effort to get the only two things he had ever truly cared about. And of course, those two things, fair viewer, is the Sonichu video game and, of course, a lovely hard sweet. And forfeited Panda to Clyde. Shortly after, however, he heard about the Australian bushfires. Death. Panda seemingly ceased to exist when Chris failed to meet her ultimatum. And Chris convinced himself that Panda Halo was one of the 173 people who died in the Black Saturday bushfires of February 2009. But whether this is true or not shall remain a mystery forever. Chris's less than stellar knowledge of foreign geography meant that the fact that the fires occurred about 1,000 kilometers from where Panda lived did little to inform his theory of her demise. In Sanchu, number 9, the fictional version of Panda Halo met her demise. After her building is put ablaze, she hurls her Pokeballs out of the window to save her electric hedgehog Pokemon, Chloe Rosechew and Blaze Bob Sonichu. Okay, Let's look at this from the perspective of Chris Chan. His lovely heart-sweet, the woman that he's been looking for all this time, he believes dies in a tragic way, burned alive. And what does he do with her character in the comics? Kills her off. Whatever. Maybe you want to write her out of the story. Not the point. But then, how does he kill her off? In a fire. Why? Why, Chris? Not to mention that her Sonichu is called Blaze Bob. And Chris thought this was a good idea. Ian Brandon Anderson thought this was a good idea, and he did it. After approximately 15 seconds of mourning, Blaze Bob reassures Chloe that they need to move on, mirroring Chris's lack of grief after the real Panda's untimely death. Because that's what Chris does. Whenever something bad happens, he mourns for a couple of days, and then that's it. He doesn't feel remorse for anything. He doesn't feel bad about anything. Any of his sweethearts that get away, he doesn't feel sad about it. He just continues to search. They never meant anything to him. This is all just a game. Rebirth. It only took a year for him to get around to it, but Chris finally obtained some manner of revenge against Clyde Cash for the assault of Panda Halo in a YouTube video. Granted, it was a complete fantasy, but then so are all of Chris's victories. In an April 2010 update to the Wikipedia, Chris published a page discussing the women he's known in his life, including Panda. There he revealed that he no longer believed she was dead. Instead, quote, "I recently learned that she was still alive, married to Clyde and with healthy child. Even though my memorial dedications were apparently a loss, I wish Sarah and Clyde many happy years in their marriage." Chris, on the Wikipedia. In released emails, Chris wrote that Clyde had told him that Panda had died and that this had been a lie, meant to get Chris away from her. In return, Chris sought to give Panda the PSN account he had made for her, and held on to for over a year in exchange for proof of this. And that will just about do it. We've got the gallery here. This, of course, is the lovely Panda Halo, Sarah. This is Clyde Cash. He's gotten rid of his obnoxious stan. And this is their lovely daughter, Penny. They look like a lovely, happy couple. This is definitely a picture of them and not just some random picture from Google. One thing I really don't like is that when Chris Chan, Solid Chris, not Liquid, was told of Penny, he immediately goes and degrades Panda's daughter, Clyde Cash's daughter, and calls her a 1-cent child. This man is deplorable and despicable. There is no other way to put it. And we have some sources. I will not look over all of these sources because it's a lot. There's some see alsos. And we're not checking DeviantArt because it is DeviantArt. I will say, Panda Halo was responsible for one of the greatest Sonichu covers of all time. That will just about do it for us today. Yeah, see ya.